You spend your days running after things that don't matter. You strive for approval, you seek recognition, and you try to fit into the expectations of others. But here's the truth. Nobody cares. At least, not in the way you think they do. The people you're trying to impress, are they really paying attention to your every move? No. And even if they are, does it matter? What if the secret to a peaceful, meaningful life lies not in the approval of others, but in shifting the focus entirely to yourself? In focusing on what's truly in your control. Because the truth is, while everyone else is caught up in their own world, you are the only one who holds the key to your inner peace. Stoic philosophy teaches us a simple yet profound truth. The only thing you have control over is yourself. Your thoughts, your actions, your reactions, these are the things you can shape. Everything else, the opinions of others, the twists and turns of fate, the things that happen outside of you, these are beyond your control. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, emphasize the power of focusing inward on cultivating virtues such as wisdom, courage, and self-discipline. They understood that the external world is unpredictable, but your inner world, that's something you can govern. By focusing on what is in your control, you can free yourself from the stress and anxiety of trying to manage what others think of you, or the ever-shifting circumstances of life. The key is to stop looking outside for answers and start looking inward. This doesn't mean you ignore the world around you, but rather that you choose where to direct your energy. You take responsibility for yourself and let go of what you cannot change. It's a liberating way of living, one that leads to real contentment, because it places your peace in your hands, not in the hands of others. In today's world, we are constantly bombarded by the pressure to gain external validation. We chase likes, praise, and recognition, believing that these things will fill some void inside us. But how often do we stop and ask ourselves, why do I need others' approval? We live in a society that makes us think our worth is tied to the opinions of others, whether it's the people around us or the strangers on social media. But this is an illusion. The more we seek approval, the more we make ourselves dependent on things outside of our control. And what happens when we don't get the validation we expect? We feel worthless, anxious, or even angry. But imagine what would happen if we let go of this need entirely, if we no longer relied on external sources to measure our value. The Stoics taught us that our worth comes not from what others think of us, but from how we live our lives, from our own actions, and from the pursuit of virtue. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal journals, often reminded himself that the approval of others is fleeting, and that true peace comes from within, not from external sources. When you stop seeking validation from others, you free yourself from their judgments and their fleeting opinions. You start to live on your own terms, and you realize that what truly matters is not how others see you, but how you see yourself and the life you lead. The central tenet of Stoicism is simple. Focus on what you can control. Everything outside of you, the opinions of others, the events of the world, even your own past mistakes, is beyond your power. Yet, how often do we waste our time and energy trying to control these things? We fret over how people view us. We get tangled in the web of circumstances we can't change. And we hold on to regret over things we've done or failed to do. The Stoics teach us to draw a clear line between what is within our control and what is not. They urge us to focus only on the things that we can actually influence. Our thoughts, our actions, and our responses to the world around us. Everything else is an exercise in futility. When you embrace this mindset, a sense of freedom arises. You stop being at the mercy of outside forces and begin to realize that your inner peace depends not on what happens to you, but on how you respond. Epictetus, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, put it plainly: it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This wisdom is powerful because it shifts the burden of control away from things you cannot change and places it squarely on you, where it belongs. Think about it. When you stop trying to control everything outside yourself, you free up space to focus on what truly matters. You stop wasting energy on things like other people's opinions or uncontrollable events, and instead focus on how to act with wisdom, integrity, and purpose. In doing so, you begin to live a life that's less reactive and more proactive. You find strength in your own actions and start to create your own destiny rather than being swept along by the currents of external events. The pursuit of external success, money, fame, recognition, often leads us to a false sense of fulfillment. We chase these things, believing they will bring us happiness, but they rarely do. The momentary pleasure they provide quickly fades, and we're left empty, longing for more. In contrast, Stoic philosophy teaches that true fulfillment comes from within, from cultivating inner peace and aligning our actions with our values. This inner peace isn't dependent on circumstances. It's something we create by focusing on what we can control: our thoughts, our actions, and our reactions. When you focus on cultivating inner peace, you stop seeking happiness in fleeting external rewards. Instead, you learn to find contentment in simply being at peace with yourself. This doesn't mean you stop pursuing goals or striving for success. Rather, it means that your happiness isn't tied to the outcomes. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the idea that we can control how we respond to the world, but we cannot control the world itself. The Stoics understood that peace comes not from getting everything you want, but from accepting the things you cannot change and learning to respond to them with wisdom and calm. When you internalize this idea, your sense of fulfillment begins to shift. You stop measuring your worth by how much you've achieved or how many people approve of you, and you start measuring it by your ability to live with integrity, to face challenges with resilience, and to remain at peace no matter what life throws your way. True fulfillment, according to the Stoics, isn't found in the external world. It's found within, in the quiet strength that comes from mastering yourself and your mind. When you stop seeking validation from others, a profound freedom emerges. The pressure to conform, to meet the expectations of those around you, begins to dissipate. You stop living for the approval of others and start living for yourself, guided by your own values and sense of purpose. This doesn't mean you isolate yourself or reject feedback, but it does mean that you no longer rely on others' opinions to define who you are or what you do. You stop being a slave to external judgment and begin to rely on your own judgment to navigate life. The Stoics recognized that the opinions of others are not only fleeting, but also often misguided. People may praise you one moment and criticize you the next, but none of that defines your worth. In his writings, Epictetus pointed out that we are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond. When you let go of the need for approval, you become unshakable because your worth is rooted in something deeper than external praise or criticism. Marcus Aurelius was keenly aware of this. As the Emperor of Rome, he faced constant scrutiny, and yet he reminded himself that external judgment should never dictate his sense of self. In his meditations, he repeatedly told himself to focus on the task at hand, to perform his duties with integrity, and to care only for what was within his control. By doing so, he liberated himself from the heavy burden of trying to please everyone. This freedom allowed him to act decisively, with clarity, and in alignment with his principles, without worrying about how others might perceive him. In the same way, when you let go of the need to be liked, you reclaim your power. You stop measuring your actions against the standards of others and instead live according to your own values. This is not an easy shift to make, but once you start living for yourself, the world becomes less overwhelming. You find peace in simply doing what you believe is right, regardless of how it's received. And in that peace, you discover true freedom. True fulfillment doesn't come from chasing external rewards or accomplishments. It comes from a deeper sense of purpose, one rooted in our ability to live virtuously. The Stoics teach that happiness isn't a destination, but a way of being. It's not found in the next promotion, the next achievement, or the next moment of applause. Instead, it's found in how we live each day, with integrity, wisdom, courage, and self-discipline. When we focus on cultivating virtue and aligning our actions with our values, we begin to experience a fulfillment that no external success can provide. External achievements are fleeting. They can be taken away at any moment, leaving us empty and searching for the next thing. But the fulfillment that comes from living in accordance with our values is lasting. It's a contentment that grows from within, not from what the world gives us. Think of someone like Socrates, who lived a life of wisdom and virtue, not concerned with wealth or fame. His life was a testament to the idea that fulfillment comes from living a life of purpose, not from accumulating material possessions or social recognition. In his dialogues, Socrates constantly questioned the beliefs of his time, urging others to look inward, to seek truth and wisdom, and to live a life that was aligned with their highest principles. His satisfaction came not from external success, but from the pursuit of a life well lived. Similarly, the Stoics believed that true fulfillment comes from cultivating virtues like patience, gratitude, and resilience, regardless of what happens around us. By focusing on these inner qualities, we develop a sense of contentment that is unaffected by the ups and downs of life. When we stop measuring our success by external standards, we can find peace in knowing that we are doing the best we can, living according to our highest values, and growing as individuals. This kind of fulfillment is unshakable. It isn't based on what we have or what we achieve, but on who we are and how we live, and that's a kind of happiness that lasts a lifetime. The constant comparisons we make to others can rob us of peace and contentment. We look at someone's success, their wealth, their relationships, and we measure ourselves against them. But comparison is a trap. It distorts reality, creating a false sense of inadequacy. The Stoics understood that comparing ourselves to others only fuels discontent. In fact, it leads to either envy or pride, neither of which are conducive to peace. When we compare ourselves to others, we often forget the full picture. We see only the surface, their achievements, their outward successes, and we fail to see the struggles, sacrifices, or challenges they've faced. We also forget that each person's journey is unique. What works for one may not work for another. What seems like success to one may be a hollow pursuit for someone else. The Stoics taught us to focus on our own path, to measure our progress by our own standards, not by the fleeting benchmarks of others. In his writings, Epictetus emphasized that we should not look to others for validation or to measure our worth. He taught that true contentment comes from understanding our own values and aligning our actions with them, not from comparing ourselves to someone else's journey. When we stop comparing ourselves to others, we free ourselves from the destructive habit of measuring our worth based on external, often arbitrary standards. Comparison is also a reflection of insecurity. When we constantly compare ourselves to others, it shows that we place our self-worth in the hands of others. But the Stoics urge us to recognize that our value is not determined by how we stack up against the people around us. Our value comes from living with virtue, from cultivating a character that is true to our values, from being authentic to ourselves. When you stop comparing yourself to others, you start to focus on your own growth. You begin to celebrate your own progress, no matter how small, and find contentment in the person you're becoming. This shift from comparison to self-reflection is liberating. It allows you to let go of the constant need for approval and to cultivate a sense of peace that is rooted in your own life, not in the lives of others. Adversity is an inevitable part of life. Whether it's personal loss, failure, or facing challenges beyond our control, hardship is something we all encounter. But the Stoics didn't view adversity as something to avoid or fear. They saw it as an opportunity for growth. For the Stoics, difficulty wasn't something to be overcome as much as it was something to be embraced as a tool for cultivating resilience and virtue. Instead of seeing obstacles as setbacks, they saw them as chances to demonstrate courage, to practice patience, and to refine our character. Consider the example of Marcus Aurelius, who, despite being emperor, faced countless personal and political struggles throughout his life. In his meditations, he often reminded himself that hardship is not only inevitable, but necessary for growth. When faced with a difficult situation, he would not lament or resist it. Instead, he would focus on how to respond with wisdom and fortitude. The Stoic approach is not to fight against adversity, but to accept it as a natural part of life and use it as an opportunity to strengthen our inner resolve. Adversity teaches us important lessons that comfort and ease can never offer. When we are comfortable, it's easy to become complacent, to forget the importance of discipline, resilience, and perseverance. But when we face challenges, we are forced to look inward, to summon courage we didn't know we had, and to find solutions to problems we may have thought insurmountable. The Stoics believed that in these moments we are refining the very virtues that define us, virtues like patience, self-control, and wisdom. The Stoic response to adversity isn't to wish it away, but to use it as an opportunity to grow stronger. When faced with hardship, we ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? How can I emerge from this challenge as a better person? This shift in perspective doesn't make the difficulty go away, but it allows us to navigate it with grace, to find meaning in the struggle, and to use it as a stepping stone for our personal development. In the end, it's not the adversity itself that shapes us, but how we choose to respond to it. The Stoics taught us that it is in our most difficult moments that we have the greatest opportunity to grow. We often find ourselves trapped in the past or preoccupied with the future. We dwell on mistakes we've made, or we worry about what might happen tomorrow. Yet the Stoics teach us that true peace and contentment are found in the present moment. The past is gone, and the future is uncertain. The only time we can truly control is now. This focus on the present isn't about disregarding the past or future, but about fully engaging with the moment at hand, without distraction or regret. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, often reminds himself that the present moment is all we truly have. He writes, "Don't waste time on what you cannot control. Focus on what is in front of you." When we let go of the constant pull of the past and future, we stop wasting precious energy on things we cannot change, and instead invest it in what we can, the present. This shift allows us to approach life with a sense of calm, because we are no longer anxious about the things that lie beyond our control. Living in the present doesn't mean ignoring the future or denying the lessons of the past. It means acknowledging them, learning from them, and then returning to the present moment. It's about making each moment count, fully experiencing it, and engaging with it in a way that aligns with our values. By doing so, we free ourselves from the anxiety that comes with overthinking and can take action with clarity and purpose. The Stoic practice of mindfulness encourages us to focus on the task at hand, no matter how small it may seem. Whether it's a conversation, a decision, or a simple daily chore, we give it our full attention. By doing this, we build a sense of mastery over our time and energy, and over time, this practice of living fully in the present moment becomes a habit that brings us peace. The present is the only time where we can truly make a difference. The past is a collection of moments that have already passed, and the future is yet to unfold. But the present moment is where we live, breathe, and act. It's the moment where all change happens. By embracing the present, we stop waiting for some future time when we'll finally be at peace, and instead create that peace now, in the here and now. The Stoics understood this, and their wisdom reminds us that the present moment is where life unfolds. By fully inhabiting it, we cultivate the peace and clarity we so often seek. The need to be liked by others is a deep-seated desire that many of us carry, whether we're conscious of it or not. We adjust our words, actions, and even our very selves to fit into the expectations of those around us. But this constant pursuit of approval can be exhausting, and it often leads us down a path where we lose sight of who we really are. The Stoics recognized this as a trap, and they urged us to let go of the need for validation from others in order to live a life that is true to ourselves. When we live for others' approval, we are no longer free. Our choices, our actions, and our sense of self become dependent on the ever-changing judgments of others. And what's worse, this need for validation is never truly satisfying. Even if we do receive praise or recognition, it's fleeting. It's like drinking salt water to quench thirst. The more we seek, the thirstier we become. The Stoics understood that the key to true freedom is not in seeking to please others, but in aligning our actions with our own values, regardless of how they are received. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the emperor of Rome, often reminded himself that the approval of others didn't matter. His meditations are filled with reminders that his only duty was to live according to his principles, not to be liked by everyone. He knew that in order to lead a meaningful life, he had to act with integrity, even when it meant facing criticism. The Stoic principle of indifference to external opinion teaches us that our value is not determined by how others see us, but by how we live our lives. Letting go of the need to be liked doesn't mean we become indifferent or detached from others. It simply means we no longer rely on their approval to define our worth. We can still care deeply for others, still seek to help and uplift them, but we no longer allow their judgment to dictate how we live. By doing so, we reclaim our power. We stop seeking approval and start living for our own values. And in doing so, we free ourselves from the exhausting cycle of seeking validation and begin to live a life that is authentically ours. When you let go of the need to be liked, you find a new sense of peace. You begin to make decisions based on what is right, not on what will earn you approval. You start living a life that reflects your true self, not a version of yourself shaped by others' expectations. This is the freedom that the Stoics believed was essential for living a fulfilling life. It's the freedom to be yourself, unapologetically, without the weight of others' judgments. And in that freedom, you'll find a deeper sense of contentment than any approval could ever offer. Self-reflection is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, offering us a way to step back and examine our actions, thoughts, and emotions with clarity. Without it, we run the risk of living on autopilot, reacting to life's challenges without understanding why we do so or what drives us. The Stoics believed that the practice of self-reflection allows us to better understand our impulses, recognize our weaknesses, and align our actions with our true values. In doing so, we become the masters of our own lives rather than being swept away by the unpredictability of external events. The power of self-reflection lies in its ability to ground us. Every day, we face countless decisions, some small, some significant. In each moment, we have the opportunity to choose how we will respond to the world. But without pausing to reflect, those choices can become automatic, driven by habit or emotion rather than intention. Through self-reflection, we give ourselves the space to evaluate our responses and correct course when necessary. It's a moment of honesty where we confront ourselves and ask, are my actions aligned with who I want to be? Are my reactions helping or hindering my growth? Epictetus, in his teachings, emphasized the importance of reflecting on our daily actions. He suggested that every evening we should examine the day, what we did well, and what we could improve upon. By doing so, we are not simply observing our behavior but actively working to refine it. This process doesn't require judgment or self-criticism. Rather, it's an honest assessment aimed at self-improvement. The Stoics believed that by regularly reflecting on our lives, we can identify patterns, acknowledge our progress, and make intentional choices moving forward. Self-reflection also allows us to confront the difficult truths about ourselves. It helps us see where our ego, fears, or desires might be clouding our judgment or leading us astray. This isn't always comfortable, but it's necessary for growth. Without this level of introspection, we remain stuck in old patterns, repeating mistakes, and never advancing toward the person we want to become. Through self-reflection, we gain insight into our true motivations, enabling us to act in ways that are more aligned with our higher purpose. By making self-reflection a daily habit, we cultivate a deeper understanding of ourselves, and in turn, we begin to live with greater intention. This process doesn't just help us make better decisions, it also fosters a sense of peace, because it allows us to accept responsibility for our actions and grow from them. The more we reflect, the more we realize that we have the power to shape our own lives. It's not the world or others that determine our path. It's our ability to reflect, learn, and choose wisely that shapes our journey. Energy is a precious resource, one that we often waste without realizing it. Every day, we expend energy on things outside of our control, on worrying about what others think, on chasing after external validation, and on trying to manage circumstances that are beyond our influence. But the Stoics understood that in order to live a life of purpose, we must direct our energy toward what we can control. By doing so, we reclaim that energy and use it in ways that lead to personal growth and peace. When we focus on external factors, what people think of us, how others view our success, or what might happen in the future, we scatter our energy. We become distracted, pulled in different directions by forces we can't control. This leaves us feeling drained, anxious, and unfulfilled. But when we shift our focus to what is within our control, our thoughts, our actions, our responses, we begin to conserve our energy. We stop wasting it on things that don't matter, and we channel it toward what truly aligns with our values and goals. Epictetus taught that we should be mindful of where we direct our energy, advising that we should concern ourselves only with things that lie within our control. When we waste energy on external concerns, we lose the power to shape our own lives. But when we focus inward, on our own character, our own choices, we gain the strength to create the life we want. This focus allows us to act with purpose and clarity, without being drained by distractions or concerns that don't serve us. The act of reclaiming our energy isn't just about saying no to distractions, it's also about saying yes to what truly matters. It's about dedicating time and effort to what brings us fulfillment, whether that's personal growth, meaningful relationships, or pursuing our passions. When we focus on what we can control, we begin to feel a sense of alignment between our actions and our values, and that alignment brings energy. It makes us feel more alive, more present, and more connected to our true purpose. To reclaim your energy, take a step back and examine where it's being spent. Are you giving too much of your mental and emotional resources to things that are beyond your control? Are you allowing the opinions of others or the unpredictability of life to drain you? When you recognize these energy leaks, you can take action to plug them. Shift your focus to what you can influence, and gradually, you'll find that you have more energy for the things that truly matter. In doing so, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of reacting to the world and begin to live more intentionally, with greater clarity and purpose. Incorporating Stoic principles into daily life doesn't require radical change or an entirely new way of living. It's about small, consistent actions that align with the wisdom of Stoicism. The Stoics believed in practicality. They didn't see their philosophy as something reserved for a select few or a distant ideal. It was meant to be lived day by day in the midst of ordinary life. By taking intentional steps to live according to Stoic principles, we can cultivate resilience, peace, and a greater sense of purpose. One of the simplest Stoic practices is to pause and reflect before reacting. Whenever you find yourself in a difficult situation, instead of reacting immediately, take a moment to breathe, to center yourself, and to ask, "What is in my control here?" This question helps to refocus your energy on what you can influence and prevents you from getting lost in frustration, anxiety, or emotional turmoil. It's a small practice, but over time, it transforms how you approach life's challenges. Another practical Stoic tool is journaling. The Stoics often wrote down their thoughts, reflecting on their actions, their desires, and their responses to the world. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is perhaps the most famous example of this practice. But journaling doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as spending a few minutes each day writing down your thoughts, assessing your actions, and considering how you can improve. This helps to keep your mind focused on what matters and keeps you grounded in your values. In daily life, practicing gratitude is another Stoic practice that can be easily incorporated. The Stoics believed in appreciating what we have rather than focusing on what we lack. Each day, take a moment to reflect on what you are grateful for. It could be something simple, a good conversation, the beauty of nature, or the opportunity to grow as a person. Gratitude shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance, helping you to see the value in every moment. The Stoics also placed great emphasis on embracing discomfort as a way to build resilience. This might mean choosing to do something difficult that you know will benefit you in the long run, whether it's physical exercise, tackling an uncomfortable task, or facing an emotional challenge. Stoicism teaches us that hardship is not something to avoid, but something to embrace. It's in those moments of discomfort that we build our inner strength and become more capable of handling whatever life throws our way. Finally, practicing mindfulness and being fully present in everything you do is a daily Stoic habit. Whether you're having a conversation, working on a project, or simply sitting with your thoughts, make an effort to be fully engaged in the moment. This helps you stay grounded and aware of what you're doing, making it easier to stay true to your principles and remain calm in the face of challenges. It also keeps you from being distracted by worries about the past or the future, allowing you to focus on what truly matters. By taking these small but powerful steps, Stoicism becomes a natural part of your daily life. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. Every day presents new opportunities to practice Stoic principles, and with each opportunity, we grow stronger, wiser, and more at peace. As you begin to implement these practices, you'll find that Stoicism isn't just a philosophy, it's a way of life, one that empowers you to live with purpose and resilience, no matter what the world throws at you. If this message resonated with you and you're ready to take control of your life, to focus on what truly matters, and to embrace the Stoic principles that can lead you to peace, consider subscribing for more practical wisdom. Let's continue this journey together, one step at a time.